I'm trying to figure out how to make this into horizontal. I cannot figure out how to do it. So until I figure that out, I'm just going to be stuck for now. All right, we're going to start. Let's start off with a little bit of a random Urantia book quote. See what the universe wants us to know right now. All right, so if you are new to the Urantia book, this book is absolutely mind-blowing. I don't care who you are, what you know, where you're from, what tradition you're from. This is just like so packed with wisdom. It's really, really profound. You really have to experience it to believe it. And then when you do, you can confirm that there's no way a person could have this much insight. All right, here's a random quote. Omniscience and predestination. That's interesting. The function of creator will, being God, will, and creature will, being us, in the grand universe, operates within the limits and in accordance with the possibilities established by the master architects. This foreordination of these maximum limits do not, however, in the least abridge the sovereignty of creature will within these boundaries. Neither does ultimate knowledge, full allowance for all finite choice, constitute an abrogation of finite volition. A mature and far-seeing human being might be able to forecast the decisions of some younger associate most accurately, but this foreknowledge takes nothing away from the freedom and genuineness of the decision itself. The gods have wisely limited the range of the action of immature will, but it is true will nonetheless within these defined limits. So that's a very big question that people have about God. Does God know everything? If he knows everything, then am I just a puppet? It's saying, no, you're not. God, and it'll go on to say, okay, even the supreme correlation of all past, present, and future choice does not invalidate the authenticity of such choosings. It rather indicates the foreordained trend of the cosmos and suggests foreknowledge of those volitional beings who may or may not elect to become contributory parts of the experiential actualization of all reality. Error in finite choosing is time-bound and time-limited. So it's almost like a sandbox. That's exactly what it is. Or if you've ever played video games, they have sandbox games like Minecraft and things where you can do whatever you want, but it's not going to go beyond that. But you can determine whether or not you're going to go beyond the sandbox or you're going to stay time-bound and space-limited by those choices. So it's not that it's not real or that it's only in a video game. You're setting up by your own free will choice, and nothing else can control that. And it's not foreordained. What happens beyond that, when you choose to go beyond the sandbox, that can be foreordained. It's saying that there is these various possibilities established by the master architects, okay? Such mistaken choosing as time possible indicates, beside the incompleteness of the supreme, that certain range of choice with which human or immature creatures must be endowed in order to enjoy universe progression by making free will contact with reality. Sin in time-conditioned space clearly proves the temporal liberty, even license of the finite will. Because if there wasn't free will, then you would just have everything. Nobody would sin. You would just have everything in perfection. Sin depicts immaturity dazzled by the freedom of the relatively sovereign will of personality, while failing to perceive the supreme obligations and duties of cosmic citizenship. Because if you're doing sin, then you don't understand that you're a cosmic citizen. It's one big family, so you wouldn't kill your brother or sister. Iniquity in the finite domains reveals the transient reality of all God unidentified selfhood. Okay, iniquity is a level beyond sin. That's like really, sin can just be more of an ignorance type thing. Iniquity is like you're really mad, insane type thing. Only as a creature becomes God identified does he become truly real in the universes. You're just in the sandbox until then. When you start to become God identified, that's reality. This is relative reality. It's not saying it's not real and nothing matters. We should want to serve and make the positive choices here. Finite personality is not self created, but in the super universe arena of choice, it does self determine destiny. See, okay. So you really are determining your destiny. Hey, Isaac. The bestowal of life renders material energy systems capable of self perpetuation. Self-propagation and self-adaptation. The bestowal of personality imparts to living organisms the further prerogatives of self-determination, self-evolution, and self-identification with a fusion spirit of deity. Okay, so life, just life itself, um, you'll have this self-perpetuation. Let me read that again. The bestowal of life renders material energy systems capable of self-perpetuation. Okay, because from God's perspective, you have this life and you can perpetuate it indefinitely. Self propagation and self adaptation. The bestowal of personality, now there's not just life, okay? Now it has a personality within it. To living organisms, the further prerogatives of self determination, I see. Life itself could just be a machine, basically, or even like an animal, for instance. Um, Animals are that non-teachable mechanical mind. They're alive, but they only have a very limited range of choice. They're not choosing whether or not they want to worship God. You know, their choices are very basic. So, but then when you put a personality into that, like we have these wickedly diverse personalities, each one has an individual one. Now you can do the self-determination. Animals have to leap before they learn. Humans can then eventually go on to look before leaping. And so that's this self determination. That's where personality comes in. Self evolution and self identification with a fusion spirit of deity. Subpersonal living things. Can people see that? Subpersonal living things indicate mind activating energy matter. First as physical controllers and then as adjutant mind spirits. Personality endowment comes from the Father and imparts unique prerogatives of choice to the living systems. But if personality has the prerogative of exercising volitional choice of reality identification, spiritual, that's what that is. And if this is a true and free choice, okay, it's not like you're being coerced or you were born into a religion or something. Eventually, it's up to you. Then must evolving personality also have the possible choice of becoming self-confusing? If not, then you're just a puppet. If you only have this choice and you can't become self-confusing, self-disrupting, and self-destroying, then there's only just this one path. There's no free will. The possibility of cosmic self-destruction cannot be avoided if the evolving personality is to be truly free and in the exercise of finite will. Therefore, is there increased safety in narrowing the limits of personality choice through the lower levels of existence? Okay, so that's a great example of that is that our planet is under a quarantine right now because our early spiritual leaders went into rebellion. And so they're limiting the scope of that rebellion. Well, it's a system-wide quarantine, which might be something like 1,000 or 10,000 inhabited planets or something like that. I forget exactly. But they're limiting it to that system, okay? Because our system leader decided to go into rebellion. And so there's a quarantine, as in its prison world, right? But within that, we can still choose to move beyond that. But the beings here are quarantined and there's this limited contact, right? So they're keeping this as this sandbox. They're limiting the choice throughout the lower levels of existence. Choice becomes increasingly liberated as the universes are ascended. You get more responsibility because there's less possibility that you're going to really mess things up because you've attained more. You've really made that consecration of choice. Choice eventually approximates divine freedom when the ascending personality achieves divinity of status, supremacy of consecration to the purposes of the universe, completion of cosmic wisdom attainment, and finality of creature identification with the will and the way of God. Okay, so that's what our eventual attainment is. So that was what we randomly went on to. But as you can see, I mean, people ask that question a lot. Is there such thing as free will and stuff? And then it even goes on. Control and over control, right? Universe mechanisms. That's what I'm saying. This book is time and here, look, if you don't think this is a deep book, let's just read this first thing and then reconsider it. Compare this to things that you've heard or read before, spiritual teachings, right? Be it Buddhism, I don't care. Listen to the caliber of this. Universe mechanisms. Time and space are a conjoined mechanism of the master universe, okay? So Einstein, link them together, right? This time-space fabric. They are the devices whereby finite creatures are enabled to coexist in the cosmos with the infinite. Finite creatures are effectively insulated from the absolute levels by time and space. Okay? But there's a coordination there, as in we're indwelt by God within us, that bestowal. Even though I'm a time-space creature, I'm indwelt by God. So we're having this richness of existence being both finite and potential for infinite, depending on our choice. Finite creatures are effectively insulated from the absolute levels by time and space, but these insulating media, with they're calling time and space media, without which no mortal could exist, operate directly to limit the range of finite action. Without them, no creature could act, but by them, the acts of every creature are definitely limited. So it's just it's the mechanism that needs time space is the mechanism that the all-wise creator realized needed to be in place in order for us to have an existence that evolves from imperfect free will creatures to the level of divinity. We couldn't do that in Havona or Central Paradise because the possibility for sin and iniquity and things like that doesn't even exist there. You either have to be created in perfection, which many beings are, or that's an attainment level, which is our destiny, is to attain that if we choose it. So this is the media in which God realizes, all right, we're going to, like I said, it's this sandbox, this time-space sandbox, relative reality. Not that it's not real, it's relatively real. Mechanisms produced by higher minds function to liberate their creative sources, but to some degree unvaryingly limit the action of all subordinate intelligences. To the creatures of the universes, this limitation becomes apparent as the mechanisms of the universe. Man does not have unfettered free will. There are limits to the range of choice, but within the radius of this choice, his will is relatively sovereign. Okay, so you can choose to destroy yourself. That's what it's saying. That if you choose to destroy yourself, then that's it. They're going to have to honor that. And how do you do that? By divorcing yourself from reality, which is spirit. Spirit is not relative reality. That is eternal reality. And if you combine with that, then you will be eternal. The life mechanism of the mortal personality, the human body, is the product of supermortal creative design. Therefore, it can never be perfectly controlled by man himself. Only when ascending man, in liaison with the fused adjuster, self-creates the mechanism for personality expression, will he achieve perfected control thereof. Okay, so it's the adjuster. Remember, if you're new here, the adjuster is your spirit. They call that the thought adjuster. It's this fragment entity of God. So when you fuse with that, then you will achieve perfected control. The grand universe is mechanism as well as organism. Mechanical and living, a living mechanism activated by a supreme mind, coordinating with a supreme spirit and finding expression on maximum levels of power and personality unification as the supreme being, which is the God of time and space. See, we need our own aspect of God here in time and space, something that's also evolutionary, an evolving God called the Supreme, God the Supreme. So, but to deny the mechanism of the finite creation is to deny fact and to disregard reality. But remember, even though there's a supreme being, they're all coordinated and it's all synthesized in monotheism. God, this is just an aspect of God the Father. But to deny the mechanism of finite creation is to deny the fact and disregard reality. See, they're saying there's consciousness behind these mechanisms, is what they're saying there. It's not just accidents of time and space. It's not just matter, right? As a materialist would say, it's just all matter. And but they're saying to deny that is to deny the reality. Mechanisms are the product of mind, creative mind acting on and in cosmic potentials. Mechanisms are the fixed crystallization of creator thought, and they ever function true to the volitional concept that gave them origin. But the purposiveness of any mechanism is in its origin, not in its function. That's a very, because you can, all right, so like the origin being God, right? But our function, we can function it to do evil things. I can function it to kill somebody if I want. So that's why the purpose is actually in its origin. From what God originally intended was for you to be a service creature, not a self-centered, self-serving being. Mechanism should not be thought of as limiting the action of deity. Rather, is it true that in these very mechanics, deity has achieved one phase of eternal expression? The basic universe mechanism have come into, so it goes on, and I'm telling you guys, look at, that's one page, right? Look at how massive, 2,100 page, 2,000 pages of that. This thing is really, it's the deepest possible. If you want to wrap your mind into something deep, pick this book up for sure. And if you're new here, the authors are advanced. Let's see if we can zoom out a little bit here. Oops, sorry. Look at Divine Counselor, Brilliant Evening Star, Melchizedek, Chief of Seraphim, Midwayers. Midwayers are direct cousin angels, basically. Seraphim are actually a step beyond Midwayers. Midwayers are the next closest thing in the universe to humans. These are like our cousins. We can't see them, but there's many, many of them. I don't even know how many are on the planet, but many were lost in the rebellion. Okay, so that's our random quote. Went into a little rabbit hole in the old random quote. Let's check out a question that I got here. This is a question from somebody named Random Identity. And Random Identity made this comment. I really appreciate this. Hopefully this person sees this. But they actually made a constructive comment. And normally I get like, oh, you're stupid. That type of stuff. Just like these, almost like troll level type comments. But this one was actually like disagreeing or maybe just even asking, but in a constructive way. I don't know if there's necessarily disagreeing. Okay, this person, he, she, says, interesting attempt at comparative study to the last video about the teachings of Sadhguru versus faith, because he doesn't teach the path of faith. This person says, why choose faith over seeking? Okay, they're right then and there, they're equating faith. Why isn't faith seeking? I don't understand that. Why are we putting these mutually exclusive things? Seeking, once you attain faith, you're just starting your adventure in the universe. You see how much there is out there when you start to read that book. But there's so much seeking still to go on. I have faith right now, but I am such a flawed. I have no idea what the heck is really how it's all going to unfold or anything like that. I am on such a seeking journey. I'm not seeking for, the true path because I already know that that's faith. And I know that because I had to take that leap initially, right? And before that, I was more of like doing maybe a feeling around in the dark type of seeking. And in fact, I actually was a person who was interested in Buddhism, Hinduism, and New Age, and that really had a, profound effect on me. And I know why that people, because here, let's read on. Telling people to just believe is someone slash something, telling them to believe in someone or something shows fear of losing power, control over them. Okay. But as we just read, nobody's telling to just believe. They're saying you have to choose that. But what people who have already done this and realize that this is the objective truth in the universe, no matter who you are, it's just how the universe is set up, because there is such a wide gulf between man the material and our true, man the spiritual attainment in the levels of paradise, that it's a faith walk as you continue on. It's a faith walk in the next step. I haven't been in the presence of God, but I have had inward experiences which show me that that is real. But I know that I'm not complete. So my next step is a faith. But even though I know that I'm on the right track and I'm on the right path, and it is about loving service, deity, divinity, personality. Okay, so I know I'm on the correct path, but I don't know the end all be all what that's even gonna be like. I have no idea what even the next world for me is like. All right, so nobody's telling somebody to believe in it. They're saying you have to choose that on your own. You see the difference? But that's not to deny that that's the objective reality. It's like saying if I was to say, to my kid, and this is just a crude example, not this is a to say, if you go to college, you're gonna get a better job, okay? And that might not even be true these days. I don't know. I don't care. But I'm saying that to that person, okay, my child. That doesn't mean that they have to choose that. I'm not telling them you have to go to college. I'm saying that college is the path towards a better job, all right? I see where they're coming from. And this is why the New Age has become largely Hindu and Buddhist in its approach, because they're reacting to the authority of the Catholic, your Judaisms, your Mohammedisms, Muslims. They're reacting to that kind of dogmatic, this is the control that we want to have you, and if you don't, then you go to hell, and all of that fear-based stuff. So they're reacting to that, and they were like, geez, can't we just let go? And this is saying, yeah, the Urantia book is saying, yeah, you surely can just let go, and as you should. This is about relaxing and flowing, but it's about having eternity in order to have an attainment. But eventually, you're going to arrive at faith as being the way that just the universe is set up on. You can take your time and choose whenever you want, because from the mercy, and this is again a difference between Christianity and the Urantia book. Christianity will say that if you don't choose within this life, then it's hell for you for eternity. But that doesn't seem fair, because what if somebody had a bad upbringing? What if they don't really know? What if, what it's hard to make this choice about this one dogmatic book called the Bible within this one lifetime. So you know how many beings went to hell that never professed Jesus on their deathbed? All these Jewish people, all these Muslim people. But the Urantia book teaches about mercy, and it's saying that you will be resurrected in the next world just because of the mercy of the divine. And we know what your status is down there on earth. We know how confusing it is. So we're going to resurrect you on a world where we can teach you more about the realities of God, and then you can make a choice. And until you've completely rejected it, until you learn everything about God and you know the whole plan is laid out for you and you understand and see, and these advanced beings are teaching you, until you reject it out of complete awareness and there's still a glimmer of hope in your soul that you're going to adopt it, you're continuously brought on due to mercy alone. And so that's what divine mercy truly is. And then if you make the whole soul choice, if it's all laid out to you, say it's this beautiful path of ascension, of beauty that you can't even, comprehend. You live forever, you enjoy relationships and things well beyond what, I'm even explaining right now. And the book touches on it, but it only just touches on it because we don't really have the capacity to even understand the glory that awaits us. But you'll be able to understand more of it in your next world, the Urantia phases, these training worlds, these these schools of the universe, because you will be that much closer to spirituality. So you'll even understand more. So it's even going to be more of a whole soul choice at that point. And if you reject it, though, if you say, geez, that doesn't sound good for some reason. I mean, some of them they teach that Lucifer rejected it. But the eventual, as it said in that thing that we just read, it's just you're divorcing yourself from reality. So you simply just can't exist anymore because spirit is the reality that allows personalities to survive in the universe, right? Because we know it's not material identity. I can't identify with money and have that be the thing that is my bridge to the next life, because that stays here. We can witness and observe scientifically that doesn't go on with the person when they die. We can even witness that their mind ceases to function, the electric levels of their mind. So what else is going on, right? Other than spirit. So wouldn't it make sense that if you divorce yourself from spirit, you're simply not going to exist anymore? It doesn't make sense that God would have a hell, a little twisted basement to punish people. If anybody has any questions, let me know. I'm just kind of going off on a tangent. So we got, just type them into the thing there and we'll look and see what the book has to say about it. Okay, so this person is acknowledging, hence the mass exodus from organized religions. Agreed, as they should, right? But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't say that just because there's these organized religions where a priest wants to lord power over me so he can collect my money, I'm going to throw out that faith is the key to personality survival in the universe. So that's what this, and it makes sense. We as humans tend to overreact like this. But if you're a true seeker of truth, if you truly are, now let's read on though. I'll get to that later. Let me just make a little thing, okay? True seeker. Let's make a side note because we're going to get back to that. This is a question right now that we're reading from somebody. And then this person, after they ask this question, and I really appreciate this, and I told them I really appreciate their question. So this isn't knocking or anything. This is just my genuine answer here. But then they go on to say, Buddhism is derivative of Hinduism. Buddha was, I would say, maybe even a response to Hinduism, because Hinduism was burdened with many traditions, rituals. They had 4 million gods and that sort of thing. And Buddha taught that we don't need to go into all. It was a refreshing view from having all of this burden of Hinduism, and that's why that gained so much traction in the East. That's what he taught, was like, unencumber yourself. But then what did we do to it? We encumbered the shit out of Buddhism. Now it's all about how many Uh, hey Patrick, how's it going? Um, Buddhism now is super encumbered. You have to spin a prayer flag and a prayer wheel, and all the guys have funny hats. And if they want to do that, that's fine. That's like I'm not trying to put them down, but they can't also just say that they're like not like an organized religion because of the fact or an organized philosophy. Let's call it an organized philosophy because they choose to ignore faith and faith in God, right? So let's not call them a religion. They don't really want to be known as a kind of a religion, so we'll call them an organized philosophy. But you can't say that it's not encumbered. Um, and we'll go on to say they have to like in Buddhist monastery, they wake up every day and they shave everybody's head, right? Like, what does that have to do with deity and divinity? And if that's what you here's a great quote to see why I'm not just trying to put anybody down that's interested in that. If they like to do that, that's fine because of this great quote. All things have value only to the degree that they bring men and women closer to deity and divinity, aka God, and God closer to men and women. So if that has a value, that person is shaving this, head of this little boy every single day, if that has a value that's bringing them closer to God, go for it, folks. That's what this freedom of choice is all about. That's why the universe is set up on that. God's not striking them down or anything. But eventually they're going to reach a certain point where they say, this really isn't bringing me closer to God. God is within me, which is what the teaching was supposed to be about, this Buddhist seek within type stuff. But man, we always just have to, burden it with all these rituals and dogmas and things. And now another great one-liner for you. Oh wait, I just got a nice quote here, or a nice question. Urantia matters. So many people are deprived of it due to early death. Wait, how much do you think the experience? Oh, okay. How much do you think the experience gained on Urantia matters? There's nothing is ever lost or wasted in the universe that has true value or meaning. Um, So if you die early, they even talk about these infant mortality schools, or I forget, no, infant nurseries or something like that. They have a very detailed plan about if a baby dies, let's say it dies in a car accident or from disease or whatever. It goes into these special nurseries where you're able to substitute anything that you may have possibly missed on this planet because of that. The you know what? Maybe we can look it up, and then we'll get back to that. But let's look this up because this is an interesting concept. I think this directly relates to your question. So many people are deprived of it due to early death. So I sometimes wonder about its value and meaning. Okay, good. So this is in the local universe. And I believe it's on the 541. Let's see here. Yeah, there's nothing is ever lost or wasted. It matters. The Urantia life, okay? But everything is accounted for. Let's see. Oh, wait. Celestial artisans. If anybody knows where I can find that. Here we go. Probation Nursery. All right. I believe that's what it is. Parental experience. And see, all right, now here, this is a great way to, in fact, beings on this planet who never had children, I believe that they become the parents of these children who died at a young age so that they can have the experience of what it's like to be a parent, because it's extremely important universe experience, and you can only go a certain amount in the universe until you understand the experience of being a parent, because it teaches you about your relationship with God when you have your own son or daughter. Okay? Okay. The probation nursery of Satania is maintained by certain Urantia personalities on the finalider's world, one half of the planet being devoted to this work of child rearing. Here are received and reassembled certain children of surviving mortals, such as those offspring who perished on the evolutionary worlds before acquiring spirit status as individuals. Okay, so does that answer your question? There's things, everything's accounted for. God's not up there shaking his head going, geez, what are these people doing down here? I didn't know they were going to do a war where they dropped bombs on kids. Wow, I'm so surprised. I didn't know they were going to do that. No, that was definitely known, that type of stuff, because we're imperfect free will creatures. All right, so they made it a planet, okay? The ascension of either of its natural parents ensures that such a mortal child of the realms will be accorded repersonalization on the system finalizer planet, and there be permitted to demonstrate by subsequent free will choice whether or not it elects to follow the parental path of mortal ascension. Okay, so it's still having that choice. Children here appear as on the nativity world, except for the absence of sex differentiation. There is no reproduction of mortal kind after the life experience on an inhabited world. Okay, so it just details that, probation nursery itself is supervised by 1,000 couples of material sons and daughters, volunteers. And so it's just really detailed about, because people wonder that. And so, yeah, that it definitely matters what we do here on our life. And here's the reason why, because this is a breaking of shackles. Okay. If in Christianity it matters because you're choosing whether or not you're going to go to an eternity of hell or you're going to go to an eternity of heaven, right? So that's why it matters in Christianity. But that is a shackle, because we're not perfect. We might not make the most perfect choice. In the Urantia book, it's more like it matters, because if this is where we are right now here on Urantia, and this is heaven, there's so many different worlds, maybe even a billion. I forget the exact number. There's so many various things that you attain and ascend on this spiritual path of amazing joy. Because if you knew everything today, right now, then what would tomorrow hold, right? So that's why it's about this eternal adventure of attainment and that sort of thing. So what you do here matters, because you pick up on the other side of this world and this life where you left off here. So you can choose to skip all of these training spheres where they eliminate these backward concepts. And you can say, I've already eliminated those backward concepts because of my work that I've done here on this planet. I could have went out there and ha-ha'd it up and got involved in all sorts of, temporal pleasures and things, but I began to be spiritual. And that's not denying that you can still enjoy those things, right? But that you're enjoying them in line with your higher self. You're not letting them possess you. So if you are that person, if you're here, if somebody's here and just even watching, listening about spirituality, rather than, going into whatever other, there's a million and one other allures and enticements and distractions of the world, you can skip all of that. Okay? This is your mortal kind of first world, basically. And you can ascend. The pace belongs to you. I don't even know how far you can take it, you know? I'm not sure. Maybe the book teaches that, and I just don't remember how far you can actually take it here on this life and this planet. So every experience that you have matters, because every single experience, even down to the moment, even down to the small choices or the large choices, is you deciding if you want to choose the will of the Father, the universal Father, or not. So every experience and moment matters, but everything is accounted for as far as accidental deaths or, premature death or something like that. So every moment, every choice matters, but don't forget about the mercy too, so you don't feel burdened by that. Relax. It should be about relaxing and flowing towards this end goal. You have faith grants you the eternity, right? So it's like if you were to go to an amusement park, if you didn't get a season pass, you would have to rush around and make sure you did every single ride in that day, right? Because all you have is this planet, all you have is this earth right here. So you got to do whatever. You got to become a billionaire, even if it means stepping on somebody else to gain that status. You got to become a billionaire. You got to stab your partner in the back like your Zuckerberg or your Gates and all them did. Stab them in the back to rise in that corporate ladder. Because when you die, if you sold your soul, and I don't know that they did, I have no idea, I don't even know or care, but they're not, you're that's all you have, okay? So you got to do it, rush, get it all, get it here, get it now, right? But if you realize that you bought the season pass to the amusement park, then you can relax and flow. You can gain a little bit. But if you just choose to go at this slow pace and say, yeah, I have the eternity, but I really don't want to master that eternity yet. I don't want to do the self-mastery that would require me to go to all these various steps. Then you're going to end up, at one of these detention worlds where they strip you of your backwards thinkings and all of that sort of stuff, and they encourage you, inspire you to do the mastery that is required to reach these advanced worlds. So you want to get on with this here and now, because each time you do, you're also saving yourself out of some hardship down the road, right? If you get on with this here now, like let's say, for instance, I want to quit alcohol today. I'm going to save myself out of a drunk driving accident. I'm going to save myself out of medical bills that come from my liver cancer or whatever it may be. I don't have to. I can simply have faith and end up, and then I'll have to deal with it. Because death doesn't magically transform you into this perfect being. You don't even want that. You want to earn it. Okay? So that's how we set those things up. I'm going to be right. I just got to feed my cat, and I'm going to come right back. All right, so we're continuing on. Let's see, do we have any other questions? Yes, I understand, but I wonder if those children born on Mansion World will regret that Urantia or other evolutionary planet was not experienced. Is there something lost? No. When you become spiritual, you wipe those types of words, or not saying that you're not, but when you attain more, you wipe those words out of your vocabulary. There's no such more thing as regret or anything like that. You just understand the perfection of it all, and you'll be more than satiated in the spiritual path. You're talking about a divine perfection here. You're talking about a divine creator whose plan is beyond our comprehension of the word perfect. So it's not going to have this being have this regret or longing or suffering because of some, as the Urantia book puts it, accident of time. That's simply all that is. If you get in a car accident, it's not foreordained. It's not, the divine plan that you got in a car accident and died, or it's simply an accident of time. And in a time-space world with time-space physics, those things are going to happen, but they're all accounted for and allotted for. Okay. Now let me know if that answers or you have any more questions about that. But yeah, you can wipe. Okay, all right, agree. All right, let's move on to we're talking about now. We're answering this question that was why choose faith over seeking, which remember we already said they're not mutually exclusive. Even if I mean Patrick seems like a faith type of person, yet he's still seeking. I'm a faith person. I'm still seeking. I'm an infant, I'm an infant in this scheme of things. The only thing that I've really attained is that faith. I know objectively that faith is the way forward. I can teach that to people, but again, I can't prove it. I don't want to prove it, but I know it, and and that and you can know it too, But it has to start with that leap of faith, which nobody's going to be able to convince you about that. So it's not even possible to convince somebody to believe in that. They eventually have to make that change of heart on their own, and that's all it is. That's the only way that you can really describe it, maybe, or maybe there's more, but that's how I describe it, is a change of heart. A change of heart, because it's not a change of mind, because there's no logical or philosophical explanation of why faith would allow you to continue in the universe, other than to say there's just so much out there for you to experience. If you don't have, if it's not a faith walk and you expect to know everything before you move on, it's just, well, there's a reading in the book that we're going to get to. Okay, so this is continuing on this person's question that they left in the comment, which I was very appreciative of, and I really enjoyed because it's very constructive. Buddha was a Hindu prince before he took monkhood. Right, okay. Yep. Shiva is the first yogi. Okay, I understand. I have learned that as well. If I take a spiritual path for attaining moksha, that must be some sort of path in Hinduism. I'm not exactly sure what that is. People consider Shiva as their guide, okay? There are other ways to attain moksha, like bhakti, devotion, right? Like they're saying all these other devotions, you can say the name of God over and over again. There's all different ways. You can do the breath one, where you breathe through your one nostril. There's a million and one, probably a billion and one. Krishna. Now, this is ISKCON, which is, I believe, the Krishna Association. I forget what that acronym actually is. International Krishna Association or something like that. Krishna Consciousness. That I know that's Krishna Consciousness. It's basically like a sect of, I don't know if they call it Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever. Krishna is definitely Hinduism, where the path is singing praises, right? And in fact, I believe ISKCON actually believes in God. I believe this person might not realize this. I don't know if they're just telling these things to tell them or if this is partially supporting their case. But Krishna consciousness, they've arrived at the one. They've arrived at Krishna as being God. So they're monotheistic in that aspect, is my highest understanding of that, but I could be just, lost on that. Mashka is liberation. Okay. Thanks for that. If you wouldn't mind, Patrick, isn't Krishna consciousness, this ISKCON thing, aren't they monotheistic? I don't know. I can't, I don't have a thing to look up, but don't worry about it. It doesn't really matter. All right. So, not knocking, like I said, all things have value to the degree that they bring men and women closer to God and God closer to men and women. But to me, if this person is saying that they're not a person of faith, right? Why choose faith over seeking, right? They're into the seeking thing. And this is Sadhguru. This is the teachings of Sadhguru. is where we arrived at this from my Sadhguru videos. And Sadhguru doesn't teach faith or belief. He teaches seeking. However, this is so confusing to me. And I don't know why this, how are they equating, okay, for instance, Sadhguru's relation, this is the last that I want to talk about this because I already covered this in another video, but how is Sadhguru arriving at this whole Shiva concept? That this was the first yogi. How does he know that that was the first yogi? It happened way before recorded history. There's no recorded, it got passed down from generation to generation, and even he says that. I don't doubt that he can know this, but I'm wondering how he can know this if he first doesn't believe it. See, for people that believe in God and have faith in God, it goes from belief to faith to knowing, right? We can know God, but we understand the path is to first believe or to have faith. How do these individuals know that Shiva is the first yogi if it wasn't something that's just told to them in a religious type of manner, or they're not believing it? So I don't understand these, these contradictions in this. And maybe I'm just ignorant as to how somebody could know that Shiva was the first yogi, or that it even means anything, or that it even exists without a belief to faith to knowing. See, I think these people have belief in faith, but for some reason they just convince themselves that it's bad or wrong because they're equating it with Christianity. But that's where the Urantia book comes in. It's taking that away and saying Christianity has its flaws, but it has a seed of truth. Buddhism has its flaws, but it has a seed of truth. So to me, when this person's talking about all of this, doing this, singing praises and that sort of thing, to me, that is a organized religion. If you want to call it an organized philosophy because you don't believe in God, then sure. But it's some sort of organized, group or thing like that. Okay. Ultimately, Brahmanism is monotheistic, but their notions of reincarnation and dissolving of personal self are major distortions. Yeah, I believe that even the Urantia book points that out, because Buddha failed to recognize personality, and we know that that's a distortion. And personality is my reality. I'm really having a personality, and sometimes I'm doing the right thing with it, and sometimes I'm not. I don't want to dissolve that. I want to know my grandmother who passed away in the next world. I don't want her to be a piece of grass. So it's not complete. It's not, it's not about destroying the lower self, but they had their seed of truth, which was, the lower self is to be mastered, as in you're not supposed to just be a complete animal and kill somebody when you're mad at them or do X, Y, Z. You're supposed to exhibit self-control, and that's where their seed of truth came in. But it's not about destroying the lower self. It's about bringing it in line with the higher self. And I agree that Sadhguru is rooted in Hinduism, but why can't he just say that that's his belief? Because it's just, where is he arriving at that? That he has to believe Shiva was the first yogi in order to know it. How can he know that? Because he was on Joe Rogan, if anybody saw that. And Joe Rogan was trying to pin him down and ask him, how do you know that? And he's just saying, well, because it makes sense or something. But just because something there was this person that was 8 foot tall or whatever. I don't remember his exact answer, but he definitely didn't answer the question. He just said no, as in, no, I know. We, sons and daughters of God, we can say that we know. We can say that we know because we're saying it started with belief, and then to a stronger convicted faith, and then knowing. I know the reality of God, but I didn't get that from hearing a legend. I got that because I made the change of heart to start believing in that God, and then it grew into a faith, and then eventually it became a knowing experience. All right, so anyways, hopefully that answered Random Identity's question, but let's look into the Urantia book. That's my answer. Let's see what the Urantia book has to say. I picked out a reading on this. This is called Faith and Belief. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see that. Okay. Faith and belief. All right. Faith, remember, faith is a breaking of the shackles when you don't approach it from a religious aspect, but you approach it from a universal aspect, as in your relationship with God. Faith and belief. Belief has attained the level of faith when it motivates life and shapes the mode of living. So belief is actually the first step. In my opinion, these people that in Hindu, these followers of Sadhguru and Shiva, they have belief already. They're already at that level. They're calling it a dirty word because they're looking at it from the perspective of the Christian. That's my opinion. It seems as if they have a belief. They believe in spirit, which isn't provable by science, right? They believe in a lot of things. But when it motivates life, now it's faith. And you'll always have this faith walk as well. Even though I know the existence of God, I haven't attained that. So I know that faith will eventually get me there. But it's still a faith walk for me to know what the next step and next step and next step is. When it motivates life and shapes the mode of living, the acceptance of a teaching as true is not faith. That is mere belief. And that's what followers of Sadhguru are doing. Or Shiva, let's call it Shiva. They're just accepting that as true, right? But it's belief. Neither is certainty nor conviction faith. Okay, that's a difference as well. A state of mind, let me just put you on pause for 1 second, folks. A state of mind attains to faith levels only when it actually dominates the mode of living. Remember, you want this to be a whole soul choice, not vacillating. Faith is a living attribute of genuine personal religious experience. One believes truth, admires beauty, and reveres goodness, but does not worship them. Such an attitude of saving faith is centered on God alone. Okay, so that's the only, when you have faith, you don't have faith in your friends to make a decision. You can believe that maybe they will. You can have faith in the God within them, but that's, again, having faith in God. All right, I have faith that all of you out there have God within you, but I don't have faith in you as a person. I might believe that you're good. Okay, such an attitude is saving faith is centered on God alone, who is all of these personified and infinitely more. See, you have that within you. In fact, I can say I know that. I'm beyond the level of having faith in that. I know because I have it within me. And so I'm just like you. I'm no different than you. So that's how I can know that that's within you as well. I mean, I'm different in personality, but not in spiritual, capacity. Okay. God is all of those personified, but infinitely more, which is amazing. Belief is always limiting and binding. Faith is expanding and releasing. Okay. Belief fixates, faith liberates. I love that question because these people that are fixated in this whole Buddhist Shiva thing, and I just want to make sure people know I'm not attacking anybody or anything like that. I'm just looking at the theology, okay, of their theology. All right, that's the thing that I'm focusing on. If they want to believe it until the day they die, go for it. Whatever, doesn't make a difference. But I want to look at that and critique it. That's all I'm doing, is critiquing their theology, not them as people or anything like that. I love them as my brothers and sisters. So, but they're fixated because they made 100 million statues to Shiva, and they look at the image of Shiva every single day. Sadhguru made this gigantic statue, had to cost millions of dollars, who knows, this gigantic thing. And I appreciate the artistry of it, but the it's just like this it's like this, what do they call it, that metal calf or that golden calf type of concept. And again, it has value only to the degree that it brings men and women closer to God and God closer to men and women. So if somebody goes and they're inspired by that statue, it has that value because they're inspired to say, I want to find God. I saw this magnificent statue. I said, geez, there's really got to be some God out there, that he could give man the power to make this thing. I'm going to find. But then as soon as they move to the next step, they realize that statue has nothing to do with God whatsoever. It's just materials. The only godly aspect of it is that a human with a fragment of God within them created that. That thing in and of itself is just a dead material. A bomb could go off and the thing would just melt into the ground, and it wouldn't change God. It wouldn't change anybody's spiritual status in the universe or anything like that. But they worship the deity. But remember, we're supposed to center faith on God alone. It's that false whatever, calf or golden calf type stuff. Okay, I missed Patrick's comments here. Let's go back. I love how UB reaffirms our real personal selves meant to be. Yes, exactly. I want my personality. I want to remember my past life, in the next one and all of that. I just want to carry on as a personality. This is fine. This is fun. I enjoy life. I want all my friends and relatives to be around as well in the next life and all that type stuff. Personality is wonderful. It's not to be destroyed. Okay, you are correct, but they like to deny it to be perceived more advanced. I'm not as more advanced. I'm not sure if that's in relation to Krishna. Okay. Belief fixates, faith liberates. But see, when you become a son and daughter of God, a faith son and daughter, I don't have a ritual. I don't have a calf a metal calf that I pray to or anything like that. I don't, I read this book, but, I can burn this book tomorrow because this book is just words on a page. And it taught me that faith is living, or truth is living in the universe. So if every Urantia book on the planet was destroyed, nothing is lost or wasted of spiritual value, because it never is, and the book even teaches that. It says revelation is never definitive. In time and space, it's just a time-space event, right? And this is a revelation. This isn't definitive. It's destined to be upgraded, updated, and all that sort of thing. Living faith, not dead, crystallized dogmas, creeds, rituals. Throw that away. That's the breaking of the shackles. We have a living relationship with deity and divinity. I don't do a prayer. I do a prayer. I just pray to have everybody have a good day and that sort of simple thing. But it's not an organized prayer or any like church. But if you want to do that, go for it. If you enjoy that, then you're free to just do it. But that's just a bit about my relationship with the divine. Okay. But living religious faith, see, is more than the association of noble beliefs. It's living every moment of every day. And the Buddhists are correct, especially the Zen Buddhists are correct about that, because they point out the power of the moment, the power of now. And so that is their seed of great wisdom. That is living truth. If you're updating your relationship to reality every single moment, and everyone is a gift, then that is that living religious faith. It is more than an exhausted system of philosophy. It is a living experience concerned with spiritual meanings, divine ideals, and supreme values. It is God knowing and man serving. See, there's that service aspect of it as well. It's not this self-centered, or as I believe it came from the Greeks, this whole concept of contemplating your navel, just going off by yourself and just completely fixated. It's to be a service, it's to be a social. Beliefs may become group possessions, but faith must be personal. Okay, so your faith is personal. That doesn't come from the group, but then you serve the group. Theologic beliefs, and you can even foster that in others, but eventually it's up to them if they want to take the step or not. Theologic beliefs can be suggested to here we are, suggested to a group, but faith can rise up only in the heart of the individual religionist. Faith has falsified its trust when it presumes to deny realities and to confer upon its devotees assumed knowledge. Wait, let's read that again. Faith has falsified its trust when it presumes to deny realities. Right. There's no reality that we would want to deny in the universe. No scientific understanding of the evolution of man or anything like that. We don't deny any realities. We're about attaining more realities and more truth and more and more. And to confer upon its devotees assumed knowledge, right? Like, let's confer the assumed knowledge that Shiva was real. You either have to back that up with a scientific evidence or just admit that it's your belief. And then you move to faith, and then you move to knowing. I don't see how else you could know that unless it wasn't some sort of scientific, fact or something like that. Well, for Jesus, for instance, they have the historical Jesus, right? And that is historical record and that sort of thing. People, even historians, admit that there was a Jesus. But even still, even if they don't want to, I can still say that I believe in Jesus. Even if there wasn't the historical, I could say that I believe in Shiva. But so I'm not. I'm just not. I'm not attacking that understanding or anything like that. I'm simply saying I don't understand it. I don't get how they can say that they know that Shiva was the first yogi without explaining how they know that. Faith is a traitor when it fosters betrayal of intellectual integrity. It's a traitor when it fosters the betrayal of intellectual integrity. We like intellectual integrity. All right, so when our scientists say that the Earth is older than 6,000 years because of all these geological records, what the Urantia book confirms, and it goes through that in very, very descriptive detail, and it aligns with the understanding of science. And even the Urantia book says that the science in this book will be upgraded and updated at some point. So you're not to take this as like some sort of scientific, dogma or anything. But they do talk a lot about the sciences of it. But in Western man scripture, they say the earth is 6,000 years old. So that's a whole big thing, a whole divide. And it has led so many people away from Jesus of Nazareth because they're tying this fact about the world being 6,000 years old, dogmatizing that with their religious, understanding of Jesus of Nazareth, the God man. Okay. We don't have to deny spirituality and science are never going to be in any sort of conflict whatsoever. Science is a part of spirituality, but spirituality is a level beyond man's finite mind of logic. There's levels beyond that. And once you attain them, you'll find that they're altogether logical and reasonable. But the path to attaining them is faith and belief. It's not from reading, a book about logic. Okay. Intellectual integrity belittles loyalty to supreme values and divine ideals. Faith never shuns the problem-solving duty of mortal living. Living faith does not foster bigotry, persecution, or intolerance. Faith does not shackle the creative imagination, neither does it maintain an unreasoning prejudice toward the discoveries of the scientific investigation. Faith vitalizes religion and constrains the religionist heroically to live the golden rule. The zeal of faith is according to knowledge, and its strivings are the preludes to sublime peace. Okay, so they're saying that's the path. So my answer to this person's question, why choose faith over seeking? Well, first of all, I'm choosing both. But I, in my seeking, I arrived at faith. And then I had a change of heart, and then it's led me to realizations that I never had when I was purely just a seeker. Eventually, you have to find, everybody. Okay? You can seek, and seeking's great, and you're always going to be a seeker, but sometimes you can find. And this is what you'll find if you're truly open-minded. All right? And you're willing to do your own thing, which is break down your dogmas. If you break down your dogma, you say, hey, I don't know that Shiva was the first yogi. All right, so let's move beyond that. I'm sick of this topic. It was very good, though. If anybody has any questions about it, let me know. Has anybody had any book questions? Because we're going to do a little bit of artistry here. Okay. So I have this system of artistry that I call channeling. And if you want, you can follow along. It's quite interesting, quite enjoyable. But I take all of the choices out of the realm of my doing, and I go only with one choice. And that is these vertical marks on this page. So, in doing that, I'm leaving it up to the divine. And I'm allowing them to input any type of thing that they want to. And it's very interesting because as this happens, there's pictures that unfold. There's things that I didn't plan. Figures, people, all different sorts of things start to emerge over time. So I appreciate the technique. I'm curious to know if people are interested in that. But we can do, if anybody has any questions about the book or anything like that, we can cover all of that as well. So I just thought I would mix it up a little bit and do something a little bit different. But what do people think? Do you think that there's a channeling, that people can channel deity and divinity? How much of input does this have in our daily lives? Can we allow deity and divinity to work through us? A good quote that I heard is that deity and divinity works with and through people, but not as people. So you're not meeting, like when you meet like a really advanced person on your path, you're not actually meeting an angel, but there's an angel working with and through that person. So if I do an art channeling, then I'm saying I want deity and divinity to work with and through me in some way. And I've had some really interesting results, some really cool thing happen. And in fact, many times it draws better than I can as a person. And so that's when I look at it and I say, geez, I know that something's coming through there because I can't draw that well as a person. I mean, I can draw decent. And then the other thing too that I have noticed is that sometimes it even has the lighting. So it's not just the form that comes through, and usually they're figures, or you'll just have to see, because hopefully something comes through here, and we can say, oh, that looks like a picture of this, or I can see like there's some sort of form in there. But if you're following along, just grab yourself a Sharpie and grab yourself a piece of paper, and all you're doing is making one vertical mark through the whole paper from left to right, top to bottom. That way you're taking out all of your own input, and you're not making decisions like, oh, what should I draw? I think I'll draw a picture of a flower. Or you're not saying, should I draw over here or here over here? And so when I step out of the way, for instance, then I find that I can have, more of this connection with deity and divinity. And it could be in things that are not just art, that are just in your own life. And that's why Buddhism and Hinduism, in fact, I heard this quote: the East is far superior to the West. So even though I don't understand how they're not calling their things belief, all their ideas of God, that their own ideas, the Buddha, and his divinity, or even that divinity exists, because they're beyond the level of an atheist materialist. And so there's accessing divinity in some way. It's non-personalized. I realize that it's not personalized in their understanding, but there is a approach to spirituality. I even believe Sadhguru calls it spirituality. But I just don't know how he can call it spirituality if science isn't proving it. Well, no, you know what? Maybe because it's metaphysics. Maybe that's how they're approaching it, is purely from like a metaphysical type of approach. But I really think that there's a belief there. And now the other thing that we have to approach, or wrestle with when we're talking about Sadhguru, is how much of his philosophy comes from a wanting to capitalize upon it, because there is that aspect to his empire, we'll call it. Same thing like Osho. If you're familiar with Osho, his approach was more of a Zen Buddhism. The now, again, very wise, and these people have attained something, but they attain the same thing that Buddha has: an understanding of divinity, but not deity. But we sons and daughters of God, we understand that we have both. Okay, we have the personal relationship with God the Father, but then we also understand much about the universe and its, divine mechanisms that are all pervasive. This Atman, as they call it, or in the Urantia book, they call it the unqualified absolute, the non-personal aspects of deity. So we're able to comprehend and grasp both of those. So Osho called himself the spiritual playboy, and he was responding to the idea that a priest needs to be celibate and live this aesthetic, I believe it might be called, life of lack and so forth. And he's saying no. And he literally bought himself 10 Rolls Royces or something like that. And he had all of his followers give him all his money. And if we understand the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, he said that it's as easy for a rich man to go into heaven as it is to fit a camel through the eye of a needle. So we know that that's anti-God, to have that excess of 10 Rolls Royces. You can have enough to make your life happy and even have an abundance. But when it gets into excess now, that's anti-God and anti-Christ. Well, you literally can't bring that thing into heaven. So it's literally impossible for a rich person to go into heaven, because they're not taking any of those Rolls Royces with them. They're all staying around, so it's an impossibility. But even on this planet, it's a non-godly ideal because we look around and we see people suffering in abject squalor, and they don't have enough to even, feed themselves and that sort of thing. And you're going to just blow all that money on your frivolous ego trip, yet you're still at the same time going to profess that you're breaking down your ego. So there's all those and every single one of man's religions has them. Okay? And the Urantia book goes through and it breaks all of those down. They talk about, what is it? In Muslim or Mohammedanism, it wants to break down the idea that women are second-class citizens. Judaism has their 800 million different various little rituals that they need to do in order for them to approach God. Like you can't have, a lamb skin touch a bolt of cloth on Tuesday, or you have to not touch something. You can't touch technology on a Saturday, but you can touch it on a Wednesday, and your fork can't touch a pig on a Thursday, whatever. There's all these different things, and the Urantia book is saying those are just relatively arbitrary rituals and ideals. However, I can understand and see why they arrive at it. They're saying that we have to have, so there's order in the universe. We can't just be technology every single day, every single moment, and that. So I can see you can find it, and that's what unity is about. You can find where they're coming from, but then you're encouraging them, as the Urantia book does, to move beyond that, to understand what is really important with God. Is it that your fork doesn't touch this or that? Or is it that you don't torture animals or don't kill animals? That's the ideal, right? You have a slaughterhouse, and people think that having a slaughterhouse is a godly thing, and that's what God wants, is that for us to, eat the flesh of animals. Then bring your family to a slaughterhouse when church is finished. Go in your Sunday best, or even have church at the slaughterhouse. We don't have to have those type of conflicts as people who are sons and daughters of God, because we enact, remember, living faith. We enact our philosophies in all of our different day-to-day lives and livings, and we don't need to separate the disgusting realities of humanity from God. We transcend them. We move beyond them. We do things like say, oh, that's primitive animalistic behavior, eating the flesh of animals. And so we're going to transcend beyond that. And then we can hold church where we get our food from. And that's in a beautiful garden with all these beautiful vegetables. And we'll hold our church sermon exactly where we get our food from. But can the Christians that believe that that's godly to, slaughter animals, are they going to hold their church where they get their food from? No. And even in the Urantia book, there's an Adam and Eve, which were supposed to be our way showers, which were supposed to give us the divine plan. They did not partake in the flesh of animals. They ate very simply living fruits and vegetables. We're living beings, and so they didn't even, I don't even think, they might have had a small amount of grains, and that was their diet. And they were our way showers. Now, the Urantia book is not a list of don't do's. It doesn't want to confuse the message. So it doesn't say you shall not eat meat, right? But it does say this is who your way showers were, this Adam and Eve. So if you read those papers about the Garden of Eden, oh, wow, Patrick. Wow, you just made my day right there. Patrick says, veganism is the way forward, the way of heaven for sure. Wow, an advanced being, Patrick. Wow. Now, Patrick is unique and different because the Urantia community has not come to this understanding as a whole. And I can tell Patrick's a student of the Urantia book because he has the symbol as his picture. But Patrick probably has, even as I have, gotten frustrated humanly. My divine self, doesn't get frustrated. But humanly, I've had the experience, and I had to, move away from the. I was on the Urantia Facebook page because they didn't understand the primitive animalistic nature of eating animals, and they didn't understand the ungodliness of killing those animals purely for your own taste sensation, because we can get all the nutrients and more from um, from the vegetable kingdom. So there's no other reason in order to do that other than your pure taste sensation. Now, another interesting thing to consider about that is when you bring that up, like for instance, alcohol. That's an ungodly poison. It makes people, how many people have sat there and sobbed because an alcoholic did something to them, but people might say, oh, everything in moderation. Okay, so we're going to talk about self-mastery now that we're on the subject. Okay, so let's approach alcohol. People might say everything in moderation. But does that mean that you want to eat arsenic in moderation? You say everything in moderation. Well, arsenic is part of everything. Poison is part of everything. Why do you want to eat poison in moderation? Alcohol is a poison. It's scientifically known to cause cancer. Okay, so that's just mad science saying that. So everything in moderation is not a philosophy. It's not a godly philosophy. However, God isn't saying if you do alcohol, you're going to go to hell, right? So you can wipe that out of your mind and break that shackle. You don't have to battle yourself. There's no more battling when you walk on the spiritual path. You simply recognize that that's your lower nature, that's your animal nature. If you need to do it that time, then just tell yourself, next time I'm going to have more strength and I'm going to move on from it. So any addiction or anything like that. So that is what, not battling is about. And another one that you get when you tell people, oh, well, Jesus ate fish, right? So we know that. Okay, now here's the difference. Jesus was a first century Jew with a first century mind. So he has that human aspect to him. And the book teaches you're not supposed to take that away from Jesus. It's important that he was a human man of his times. Yes, he was more than that, but that was a very important aspect of him. And that's why he bestowed himself as a man. So even more beyond that, okay, so he wasn't going to come and try to teach everybody about every advanced thinking that you could possibly have. That wasn't his mission. It was hard enough for him to get through to people about these two simple messages, which were faith in one God is what's going to grant you eternal salvation, not fear of God, not fear that if you don't do a certain ritual, God is going to cast you into hell. And the love and service of all humans, not just various beings in a certain sect or belief system. So he had a hard enough time getting that across. He imparted some more lessons, as you read about his life and teachings in the Urantia book. But he did not. It was not part of his mission then to give every advanced teaching. Remember, we're supposed to be gradually attaining these things as a society. They didn't just give the most advanced revelation to the early primitive man because he wouldn't even know what to do with it, right? So remember, Jesus' revelation is not definitive as far as we're never allowed to grow beyond that. And the Urantia kingdom doesn't, or the Urantia community, they haven't accepted this yet as a whole. They're starting to, well, not starting, but they're dogmatizing it, which is going to happen with everything. It happened. The New Age movement was supposed to be beyond any one of the religions, right? But now that's become a religion. If you look at all the different various New Age, thinking, they're not ready for new presentations. Not everybody. I'm just saying that hasn't changed the world. The New Age, it's a religion now. It's a religion. If you go into like a New Age store, you're going to see all the crystals. You're going to see this and that, and those are great. Remember, all things have value to the degree that they bring men and women closer. But they are, they're limited. It was supposed to be the best of all of the different teachings, but unless you have living truth, unless you understand and learn that concept, any teaching, including the Urantia book, which even specifically says, don't make this into a crystallized creed. And then that's what they've done. But Patrick hasn't done that because he understands. He's got to go to bed. It's middle of the night. Oh, in Poland. Cool, Patrick. Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate that you're taking this to the next level. So take care. See you around. All right. If you're just joining us, we're just sketching, talking Urantia. If you want to practice this is like my art channeling technique where it's really just like a freeing thing where you only do one movement so you don't have to think. It's completely like this. And then the divine starts to reveal, if you're channeling, I see pictures and things like that in it. And I've concluded that it's, that there's some sort of higher essence coming through when I step aside. And but anyways, that's not really that important. We're just kind of, the more important thing is, all right, so we're talking about the lessons of self-mastery. Now, even having said that Jesus' mission was to teach those two things, there is lessons about self-mastery in the Urantia book that Jesus taught, and you can read those. He taught a specific lesson about self-mastery. In fact, let's go to the book. Let's check that out. What do we have here? All right. Let's find Jesus' lesson on self-mastery. Where is this? See, the world's religions are all featured in here too. There's such wise interpretations of all the world's religions. Cynicism, Judaism, Buddhism. Let's say we've been talking about Buddhism and Hinduism. Let's take an aside. And then we'll try to find self-mastery. 1446, 1447. All right. Let's see. Okay. Ganid, that was Jesus, one of his early students before he started the public teaching things. Okay, so that's just to bring you up to speed. If you haven't read that part, that's who Ganid was, if you hear that. Ganid was shocked to discover how near Buddhism came to being a great and beautiful religion without God, without a personal and universal deity. However, he did find some record of certain earlier beliefs which reflected something of the influence of the teaching of the Melchizedek missionaries. They were a revelation. Melchizedek was a revelation, like this book is and like Jesus was. And they taught one God and one faith and that sort of thing. And you'll find, veins of this in this Buddhism. Missionaries who continued their work in India even to the times of Buddha. Jesus and Ganid collected the following statements from Buddhist literature. Out of a pure heart shall gladness spring. See, they collected the best and brightest. Okay? Out of a pure heart shall gladness spring forth to the infinite. All my being shall be at peace with this supermortal rejoicing. My soul is filled with content, and my heart overflows with the bliss of peaceful trust. I have no fear. See? Fear is the number one poison on the planet. That's how the forces of evil control people. I am free from anxiety. I dwell in security, and my enemies cannot alarm me. I am satisfied with the fruits of my confidence. I have found the approach to the immortal easy of access. I pray for faith to sustain me on the long journey. I know, see, all right, so they're even finding a vein of faith in Buddhism early to sustain me on the long journey. I know that faith from beyond will not fail me. I know my brethren will prosper if they become imbued with the faith of the immortal, even the faith that creates modesty, uprightness, wisdom, courage, knowledge, and perseverance. Let us forsake sorrow and disown fear. By faith, let us lay hold upon the true righteousness and genuine manliness. Let us learn to meditate on justice and mercy. Faith is man's true wealth. It is the endowment of virtue and glory. Wow. So just they find, and that's what that unity is. It's about finding those seeds of great truth within the religions, but then rejecting what's holding them back. And as Gannon found, what was holding them back, they came really close. A personal, universal deity is what they failed to recognize. That's what Buddha failed to recognize. And that's what stagnated them in the universe. Because you'll come, and why did it? Because you come across all of these different things, you can't love, a non-personal entity. How is that going to love and be loved? It's like physics can't love and be loved. That love is a personal experience shared between persons. It's not a force like in Star Wars, how you use the force, or a thing like in physics. But now, since we have moved beyond that, we're accepting a universal deity. We don't have to come across that contradiction anymore. That's perfectly settled in our mind that the Universal Father is a personal deity that can love and be loved. And in fact, when doing so, you find yourself much more uplifted. Because now you can know that there's a divine person who can understand you, not a force that's just exerting on you. So it goes on, Hinduism. So they collected all the best and brightest of these. Let's see if there's any. Well, okay. Let's find self-mastery here. Let's see if we can find it. If anybody knows where the part about Jesus teaching self-mastery is, let me know in the book. All right, let's start at the beginning here. We'll zoom out so you can kind of peruse some of these. Let's see. Oops. Zoom is okay. Here we go. All right, so there's the early childhood, starting right here. Let's peruse this and find out Jesus' lesson in self-mastery. You can see how detailed this is. It's like 1,000 pages, I think. Yeah, it starts at page 1,323 and ends at like 2,100. So it's almost 1,000 pages of the life and teachings of Jesus, people. It's so deep. It's so profound. If you have not read this, you got to get a copy and just read this. Look at the human Jesus. Here, I'll read some of these titles. Look at what it's telling us about. Okay, the human Jesus, God's will and man's will, discourse on reality. That's amazing. Okay, Jesus discoursed on reality. We'll keep that on hold, and maybe we'll go back to that. 1433, discourse on reality. I'll write that down. It goes into the different religions there: Shinto, Tao. Okay, true values, good and evil, truth and faith. Whoever asked that question about belief and faith, they should check that one out. Personal ministry. Okay, it's when I know he was teaching it to the disciples, so it's after he picked up the disciples, I'm pretty sure. Discourse on science. Jesus discoursed on science. I don't think you get that in the Bible. I haven't read all the Bible. I don't think there's a Jesus discourse on science, discourse on the soul. Urmia lectures, those are really good if you read that. He goes into government. Jesus discourses on the ideals of government. Political sovereignty, see, that sort of stuff. Okay, the kingdom of God, John begins to preach. See, concepts of the expected Messiah. That's why the Jews rejected Jesus, because they wanted him, they thought their Messiah was going to take the throne of David and all that type of historical type thing. But he was like, I'm not a historical, that's not my mission to become like, they wanted him to become the king of the world. And he was just a simple man who just lived his, life. So they didn't think that he was a Messiah because he didn't fulfill that prophecy or their, idea. But he was so much more than the king of the world, is the paradox of it. He was the creator of a universe. But just because he didn't want to sit in the throne of David, I don't know if that's the exact thing or whatever. So that's because they're just humans bound by their own, human intellect. If they were, and many of them were open-minded and they converted and went with them, obviously. All right, let's see what else we got. Okay, choosing of the different apostles now. Preliminary instruction, ordination, the Sermon on the Mount. Doing the Father's will. Economic attitude, social attitude, personal religion. There's so much information in this, helpful, pertinent to your life today and now, that changes your life. Spiritual unity. Remember, it's about unity, not uniformity. Concept of God. Lesson on self-mastery, 1609. Okay, because we're talking about diet being essential on the spiritual path, 1609. We're saying when I inform people in the Urantia community, 1609, who have turned this into a religion, they say, well, Jesus ate wine and Jesus ate fish, so therefore I can eat wine and I can eat fish. But like I said, his main thing was to teach faith in God and not to give people the details of more. And this is what the Urantia book, if somebody were to say, what's the difference between the life and teachings of Jesus and the Urantia book? The Urantia book reveals, I believe Jesus hinted at it, but we'll see. The Urantia book reveals that it's not, faith will grant you the eternity, like Jesus said. Yes, faith will grant you the eternal life. But mastery and ascension in the universe is about mastery, is about self-mastery. God the Supreme is all evolving God of time and space. And that's what the Urantia book is revealing. That's the main, to me, the main advancement. If you could say there's one advancement from the revelation of Jesus of Nazareth to the revelation of the Urantia book, I would say that it's God the Supreme, and that your evolution in the universe is based on mastery. Your attainment in the universe is based on mastery, even though your eternal life in the universe is based on faith. It reveals that there's this unending path and universe ascension. And you may tarry around on the very first mansion worlds for as long as you want, but you will not attain the very next mansion worlds and on into the central universe of Havona, and so forth, until you do mastery. Mastery can start here and now, in this life in the flesh. A mind of perfect poise, housed in a body of clean habits, with stabilized neural energies. And that's a quote from the Urantia book. Now, keep that in mind. A mind of perfect poise. All right, let's look at Jesus' lesson on self-mastery here. Okay. Lesson on self-mastery. The master was a perfect specimen of human self-control. Wow. Is anybody out there familiar with the teachings of Teal Swan? We're going to take just a little aside because there's something in Teal Swan's thing that I want to update, because this will help you on your path. This is something that, again, the New Age is missing. The New Age needs to accept and understand that right then and there, Jesus is a perfect example of human self-control. So Teal Swan, when asked about Jesus, she said that it was Christ consciousness, right? She says that's what Jesus is. It's really Christ consciousness. Oh, does that have two S's? Okay, that looks weird. I don't know. All right, so, and she's saying it's not necessarily a choice between good and evil. It's purely being conscious. Consciousness is God in a lot of this New Age understanding, and it stems from Buddhism and Hinduism and all that sort of stuff. Consciousness is God alone. That's where we're getting this idea of non-duality. There's no good and evil, right, in non-duality, because that's a duality. They're saying all are just one, are just consciousness, okay? Now, the Urantia book is not denying that at various levels in the universe, there's no such thing as evil. That is beyond time and space, however. That's the central universe, that's paradise. Time and space has this thing called evil, which is relatively real, okay? So keep that in mind. Evil is only relatively real, but it is still relatively real. It's not non-existent. And we can understand that and know that if we are to approach something like a school shooting. We're not going to say that that is the same as going into a school and doing a school teaching, right? But if everything's non-duality, then that's the same. So what's the difference, right? Now, she's saying that just simply being conscious of the choice that you make is Christ consciousness. So she says, if you're going to punch somebody in the face, punch them in the face and know that you're doing it. Be conscious of doing it, and that is Christ consciousness. If you're asleep in doing it, and I can see her point, because she's trying to get people to wake up and be conscious of their actions, right? But that is consciousness. It's not Christ consciousness, because Christ was a perfect specimen of human self-control. When he was reviled, which I think means, got agitated or somebody tried to agitate him, he reviled not. He maintained his composure and control. When he suffered, he uttered no threats against his tormentors. When he was denounced by his enemies, he simply committed himself to the righteous judgment of the Father in heaven. That is Christ's consciousness, folks. Okay? If you're agitated, you don't punch the person in the face wholeheartedly and call that Christ consciousness. That's evil. And in this time-space universe, this existence that we're having right now, evil is a relative reality that we can choose. And when we do, it creates a whole lot of pain and strife and negative things for the individual who I did evil upon. But again, they're not denying that there's a non-duality in the universe. But those are levels beyond time and space. And nothing is more important than our status sphere. We are in a time and space universe. So don't get so heady and flighty into this head trip of non duality that you can't say doing a school shooting is not the same as doing a school teaching, right? You're going you're going way out of it. And that type of approach is keeping rational and logical people from appreciating spirituality because they hear Teal Swan, who is literally probably one of the most well-known quote unquote gurus of today. And again, not knocking her. She's on her own journey. She's doing very good things with other aspects of her teaching. But when she understands, if she reads the Urantia book, she's going to have a whole new imprint on it. And now, people who say, dude, doing a school shooting is much worse than doing a school teaching, she is going to reach so many more logical, rational minded people who are viewing spirituality as she teaches it as some far off, flighty bit of weirdness. And it doesn't make sense when dealing and understanding the reality that we're living in. So, again, not denying, but we're revealing and adding on to those teachings and to understand this this is the key word. It's relatively real evil. Okay, that's how you can say both of these are happening at the same time. There's non-duality, but yes, we're in time-space universe of duality. This is eventually what we will attain if we choose to. So keep that in mind. Christ consciousness is a perfect specimen of human self-control. If not, then you're removing that understanding that we can attain that. Jesus was here to be a teacher that we could attain. We can attain a perfect specimen of human self-control. So yeah, that is just a little aside about what was how to wrestle both of these things. You don't need to. They're both the reality. Non-duality is the reality. But that's eventually we attain that. Okay, so we're here and now. Okay. Let's learn more about then this. At one of the evening conferences, Andrew asked Jesus, "Master, are we to practice self-denial as John taught us? Or are we to strive for the self-control of your teaching?" Self-denial, that's more like, I believe it's called asceticism. That's more like you're, going to lay on a bed of nails for a year because you want to destroy your lower nature. But remember, we're about bringing our lower nature in line with our higher nature through positive choices, through self-control, not destroying it by laying on a bed of nails until we, again, that teaching is going to keep people from approaching this simple understanding of what spirituality is, this rational, logical, plausible understanding of what spirituality is. Or are we to strive for the self-control of your teaching? Wherein does your teaching differ from that of John? Jesus answered, "John indeed taught you the way of righteousness in accordance with the light and laws of his fathers. And that was the religion of self-examination and self-denial. But I come with a new message." See, we're ready for the unfolding of truth because we don't crystallize and dogmatize those lessons. They're kind of, building scaffoldings. In self-control, "I show you the way of life as revealed to me by my Father in heaven. Verily, verily, I say to you, he who rules his own self is greater than he who captures a city." Greater. So you look at that, a president or monarch or king or whatever, and you look at this humble person who has mastered themselves. They're literally greater. Self-mastery is the measure of a man's moral nature and the indicator of his spiritual development. Okay, moral, veganism, not killing and torturing animals. Is killing an animal moral? Don't take it out of context and say, well, it is if I put it into a slaughterhouse and I kill 1,000,000 of them. Now somehow it's moral, right? For my own personal selfish gratification. Now it's moral because I killed 1,000,000 of them. But if I only brought one, like a dog, into a field and I kill him, no, that's not moral. It depends on what animal. If I do this animal and if I do 1,000,000 of them in a slaughterhouse, then it's fine. No, don't isolate. You can't. You have to take the totality into picture when you're looking at that. But he can't say that about because they didn't have the choice to do that. They were fishermen. He's a first century Jew with a first century mind to teach about God the Father, right? So he's not giving you a list of don't do's. But remember, we're not crystallizing, like he said, he's not crystallizing the religion of John. He's giving you new input. Well, the Urantia book is not crystallizing the religion of Jesus. It's taking the truth that he gave about faith being the salvation, but now it's revealing about this self-mastery, this ascension in the universe through mastery in God the Supreme. And even the Urantia book doesn't say outright, thou shalt be vegan, but it does teach about our material son and daughter, who they call Adam and Eve, who were not the first humans, but they were the founders of a thing that they call the Garden of Eden, but it was way later in the evolution of humanity. They teach that evolution is a reality, as we know. Any science-minded person knows that evolution is a reality. But each planet is to have a material son and daughter come to their world. And if you're a Joe Rogan fan and all of that whole, realm, they call them ancient aliens. And they have all these understandings of how did we go so parabolic in our growth all of a sudden and be able to do all these things. Well, your Urantia book teaches, you had a material son and daughter come to your planet, and they left behind advanced DNA through their offspring. Those offspring mated with the humans at the time, and that's how you get all your traditions of your god men and your ancient aliens and all that type of stuff. But that material son and daughter was to be our way shower. So that way shower did not eat meat. So they told you this is your way shower, but they don't want to say don't eat meat, because then people reject this book too. They'll reject the book and say, you're teaching me vegan, I can't, approach the book. They'll put it in there and say, but remember, we're going even beyond this book too. This book is John right now, right? We're not denying it. We're adding to it based on these things that it teaches, okay? So here it is. Self-mastery, measure of a man's moral nature and the indicator of his spiritual development. In the old order, you fasted and prayed. As the new creature of rebirth of the spirit, you are taught to believe and rejoice. Okay, so we're not fasting. We're not teaching that. Remember, it's about bringing it in line. You can enjoy all of the delicious, delectable things of the earth, right? The living fruits and vegetables. In the Father's kingdom, you are to become new creatures. Old things are to pass away, like eating the flesh of animals. Behold, I show you how all things are to become new. And by your love for one another, you are to convince the world that you have passed from bondage to liberty, from death into life everlasting. Wow. By the old way, you seek to suppress, obey, and conform to the rules of living. By the new way, you are first transformed by the Spirit of truth, and thereby strengthened in your inner soul by the constant spiritual renewing of your mind. And so are you endowed with the power of certain and joyous performance of the gracious, acceptable, and perfect will of God. Forget not, it is your personal faith in the exceedingly great and precious promise of God that ensures your becoming partakers of the divine nature. Thus, by your faith in the Spirit's transformation, you become in reality the temples of God, and in His Spirit actually dwells within you. If then the Spirit dwells within you, you are no longer bond slaves of the flesh, but free and liberated sons of the Spirit. The new law of the Spirit endows you with the liberty of self-mastery in place of the old law of fear of self-bondage and the slavery of self-denial. Oops, we're off the page. Sorry about that. Oh wait, I got a new comment. Oh, stellar gravity. Hello. Thank you. What the fuck is this? The Urantia book. you should check it out. Reading part of the Urantia book. Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay. Thanks, Stellar. The one part I already figured out. Okay. Well, she was trying to help. All right. So what's your question then? What the fuck is this? What's your question? Many times when you have done evil, you have thought to charge up your acts to the influences of the evil one, when in reality you have but been led astray by your own natural tendencies. Did not the prophet Jeremiah long ago tell you that the human heart is deceitful above all things, and sometimes even desperately wicked? Wait, I want to go back to this. Okay. The new law of the Spirit endows you with the liberty of self-mastery in place of the old law of fear of self-bondage and the slavery of self-denial. Okay, so the old law, Christianity, in fact, has taken the old law, which is the fear, it's slavery, right? Is because if you don't do it now in this life, you're going to go to an eternity of hell. You have to do certain things, or else that's it. But now, the new way that Jesus actually taught, but Christianity, lost because they were too focused on the religion about him, not the religion of him. All right, so the new law is the Spirit endows you with the liberty of self-mastery. You see, you're inspired by a God of love, not doing things because you're afraid of a God of fear. Many times when you have done evil, you have thought to charge up your acts to the influence of the evil one, when in reality you have but been led astray by your own natural tendencies. Did not the prophet Jeremiah long ago tell you that the human heart is deceitful above all things, and sometimes even desperately wicked? How easy for you to become self-deceived and thereby fall into foolish fears, divers lust. I don't know what that is. Never, I don't remember that. Divers lust, enslaving pleasures, malice, envy, and even vengeful hatred. Wow. We should look at that again. How easy, okay. Did not the prophet Jeremiah long ago tell you that the human heart is deceitful above all things? See, human heart, folks. That's the pure human heart, right? He's agreeing with that. That's the evolutionary aspect, right? It's saying you have that lower nature, lower tendency. And sometimes even desperately wicked, right? I know that from my own life. I can look at my own examples of that. How easy for you to become self-deceived, right? And thereby fall into, right, foolish fears. It's saying where it stems from. Divers lusts. Well, let's just maybe call that lusts. Enslaving pleasures like food and taste sensation, malice, envy, and even vengeful hatred. Salvation is by the regeneration of the Spirit and not by the self-righteous deeds of the flesh. Wow. See, it's all about spirit, and you can't describe that with logic. Remember, that's where faith comes in. You just say, I have this regeneration in the Spirit, and you can experience it, but you can't write a paper about it. It's something to experience, and not by the self-righteous deeds of the flesh. See, so self-righteous. You are justified by faith and fellowshipped by grace, not by fear and self-denial of the flesh. Albeit the Father's children, who have been born of the Spirit, are ever and always masters of the self and all that pertains to the desires of the flesh. See, that the Urantia kingdom, or not, I'm sorry, community, they need to read that line because they, as a whole, have not adopted uh, the understanding that the way forward is through self mastery, because self mastery involves diet. That's a choice that we make 100 times a day. Well, not, a day, but 100 a week. So why aren't those choices important, right? Why are you leaving that choice out of? They say that every choice, every one should be a manifestation of the Father's will if you're really truly trying to advance on the path. So the choice of diet is what this line is right here. Okay? The Father's children who have been born of the Spirit are ever and always masters of the self and all that pertains to the desires of the flesh. So if I'm looking in the fridge and I have the choice between eating something unhealthy and healthy, and I choose the unhealthy thing, that's a desire of the flesh. That's a taste sensation, right? When they say flesh, nowadays we know that that means a physiological chemical that's released in your brain, this pleasure fixation, this pleasure sensation, right? But it's still of the flesh because it's still a chemical in your brain. When you know that you are saved by faith, you have real peace with God. And all who follow in the way of this heavenly peace are destined to be sanctified to the eternal service of the ever advancing sons of the eternal God. Henceforth, it is not a duty, but rather your exalted privilege to cleanse yourself from all evils of mind and body while you seek for perfection in the love of God. Look at that. That right there. That says it. Henceforth, it is not a duty, but rather your exalted privilege. See, you're changing your approach to these things. And you're not looking at it as this battle that you're supposed to have with your own lower nature. You're looking at, when you change your mind about it, that's how you truly then start to be able to master it. When if it's a duty and you have to battle it and struggle with whatever you're trying to let go, I don't care if it's cocaine or alcohol or food, unhealthy food. If you're looking at your battle, but now if you look at it as saying, wow, I'm a son or a daughter of God, I have this privilege that I can advance in the universe. So you're approaching it from the positive aspect rather than the negative. And that's the real, how I'm really summing up what this teaching is. You're saying, wow, I can really become a really powerful being in the universe if when I get over my human things. And that pace belongs to me when I do that. And that's why it's not a duty. It's my privilege. I can do that as a relax and flow. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be you're just battling it or you're being a complete slave to it. You can relax and flow towards the perfection of it. Cleanse yourself from all evils of mind. What would be an evil of mind? Let's say maybe something like anger, right? Uh, and again, it doesn't mean if you're, oh, I got angry, I'm gonna go jump off a cliff because I did something bad. No, you're saying, I got angry, I'm human, I'm gonna move on. Next time I'm gonna try to have a little bit more self-control. See? uh but you're also not doing what Teal Swan teaches, which is saying that you should embrace your evil. Now, okay, let's take an aside. Well, let's just finish this and then we're going to go into the Teal Swan aside. But all evils of mind and body, while you seek for perfection. See, he's saying cleanse yourself from all evils. He's not saying embrace yourself of all evils. And we're going to learn more about that in a sec. While you seek for perfection in the love of God. Now what's an evil of body? Geez, maybe something like fall down drunk and giving yourself, stomach cancer, or, smoking cigarettes until you get lung cancer. Or, I mean, it's just, to me, it makes very much sense. And I know it does to you too, as well. So those things, it's a joy to cleanse yourself of that. It's an honor and a privilege. And think about that, okay? It's a real honor and a privilege at your own pace. So those are the things of the evils of the mind as you seek for perfection in the love of God. See, you're going for perfection. There's a real tangible thing, and this is where we differ from the New Age teachings. Now let's go into this a little bit more. Now, remember, the New Age teaching is important because they all have their own place and they all have their grains and seeds of truth. And the New Age largely is now becoming more Buddhist and things like that. It's less about, it was originally supposed to be a merger and synthesis of all of them. That's what New Age was. Teal Swan is probably the most well-known or famous or successful New Age gurus for any I don't know what she calls herself or whatever, but that's kind of, we'll just, teacher, if you don't like that word, whatever. Okay, she's New Age. And they were supposed to take in all the best of the Buddhists, the best of the Hindu, the best of Christ, Muslim, Muhammad, all of them, Zen, Shinto. Oh, I don't know if I went out there for a sec. So, supposed to take the best of all of those. But what they largely did was they crossed off a lot of the well, let's put Judaism. They crossed off the monotheistic ones for the most part. So when you go to like a yoga type thing or whatever, it's more about the Buddhist and the Hindu understanding. Okay, so that's where you get this teaching about non-duality, first of all, because that's a concept from there, right? And then, as Teal Swan explains, and we just went over, Christ consciousness means just simply being conscious. But what we just learned from the Urantia book, Christ consciousness is actually a perfect specimen of self-control. All right. And in fact, I even got riled when I read somebody's comment about thanks, Stellar, the one part that I already figured out. And, that made a reaction come in me. But I quickly recognized it. And I said, okay, well, could have been worse. But, you just move on. And that's it. And that's where we're at. We're just learning and progressing. So and rightfully so, these New Age gurus, they're looking at these things, Christianity, Muslim, and they're saying, it's a slave bondage. They're looking at that as saying something like all this list of don't do's, and it's really crushing. And every time I make a small mistake, I feel like this incredible sense of shame. But remember, it's not about that. The Urantia book reveals this is to be a lifelong, eternal progression of mastery and ascension. So you have to break your concept of that. If you do it, then you have to beat yourself up. So they're responding to Christianity. And they're saying, I feel so like less of a person when I do that. And there's all these reels, and I want to go out and dance. But you can do that. You can enjoy those things. But mastery in the universe is about bringing those things in line with the higher. So maybe you don't dance until you fall down and then you ruin your tomorrow. Maybe you go home. Maybe you don't take ecstasy all night and dance until, you can't see or end up in a hospital or something like that, right? So again, there's no balance there. The New Age was supposed to be about balance, but now we're into non-duality. And as not Sadhguru, as Teal Swan teaches, embracing your evil. Okay, embrace those. That's what she teaches. You can watch the videos about it. It's about embracing your evil nature. If now this we want universally acceptable teachings, right? She's saying that she doesn't want this to be a battle between good and evil, and she shouldn't, because it shouldn't be a battle, as Jesus just taught in that lesson about self-control. It's about a privilege and honor to ascend at your own pace. It's not this tearing battle that man's religions would want you to feel, or else you're going to hell. So even that, or there's a battle of good and evil in heaven where these angels are fighting with swords against devils, and there's no swords. There's no battle. Nothing in. If God were to have there be a potential for defeat, then he wouldn't even be God. So there's no battle happening. There's just an ascension plan. There's just beings trying to help other beings ascend in the universe, angelic beings trying to help you. And the ones that go astray, they're quarantined, they're limited. You might try to help them and convince them and lift them up, but you're not going to battle them. You're going to reveal to them truth, or maybe even our own fellow brothers and sisters who are on this lower path and understanding. We say, hey, you really should stop killing people, for instance, right? But you help them. You're not battling with them to get them to stop, let's say, whatever their addiction is. Like, let's say it's cocaine. You really need to stop the cocaine, you're telling them, and you're helping them up by uplifting them and extending your hand. You're not going to battle them over it. You can't, and you wouldn't want to. As a son and daughter of God, we don't do that type of stuff. Remember, we're on an ascension plan of joy and uplift. Now, this is where this was a reaction to this, and rightfully so, because she's trying to break people out of feeling negative about the time that they picked up a bag of chips and they downed a bag of chips, or they downed 6 beers, and now they think that they're going to go to hell. And Teal Swan is here to say, just be a little bit lighter on yourself. But she takes it too far, because now she's saying the phrase, embrace that part of yourself. And a lot of times these people have well intentioned, and I'm not denying that, and that she has a very, good message about don't battle and don't beat yourself up. But when you take it too far, what does this mean? Embrace your inner evils as a part of yourself, rather than do what Jesus was just teaching. And this is the Jesus of the Urantia book, which has a difference. There's some parallels, but he's teaching self-mastery, right? So that's a totally different lesson, embracing your evils and then mastering. If you embrace your evil, now let's say my evil is that I'm a serial killer, okay? And or I want to do some sort of, mass shooting. And that's my evil. Should I embrace that? Okay? That's the message. If I hear her teaching and it's saying embrace your evil, I don't even really think she knows what she's talking about here. I don't think she knows how evil, she's not really understanding what evil is. She thinks that evil is part of this thing that doesn't exist. She's thinking it's a creation of human mind or whatever. Evil is purely just the absence. It's going away from the divine will, and we're capable of doing that in a time space relative universe. All right, time space, but it's relatively real. If you do a school shooting, you're affecting that many people's lives. You're affecting their parents' lives. Their parents are gonna never have, like, their life is over. you know I mean, you're just drastically ruining, not only taking the child's life prematurely, but you're just completely changing the whole course of that whole community's life, that parents and all that. I mean, it's just a terrible thing. Should we embrace, does she realize that how evil moves from, here's another good thing to understand. We go from evil to error to sin to iniquity. It's a progression, okay? Evil is simply, like I said, that's just the choosing the absence of God, basically. You're choosing you're choosing non-reality. No, not choosing yet. Not choosing. Error is when you begin to choose out of being mistaken. Okay, so that's the second level. Evil simply, it's the very first level because it simply is just the reality. Now, when I begin to access that reality out of ignorance, then I'm making an error. And it's actually a step beyond evil. Evil is just like this presence, this relative reality. But now, when I'm a person that's confused and I'm going to that, I'm manifesting that, I'm doing the school shooting, I'm in error. Sin is more deliberate. Sin is knowing what you're doing and still doing it. So it's even beyond evil and error. Evil is just a relatively real thing. When I access it, then I'm in error. When I now do it purposely and say, oh, I really like to, go against God and mess with all these things, and it's beyond just an ignorant error at that point. It's more deliberate. Your sin, that's sin. And then when you choose to go into that over and over and over again, and you make that your mode of being, and you basically become cosmically insane, and you're divorcing yourself from reality over and over and over again to the point where there might not even be any spiritual capacity left in you, then you're iniquitous. Okay? It's a level even beyond sin is iniquitous, right? We're mostly here at this error type of level on this planet. Some have even, who knows? I don't even know. I don't care. But it's a reality because you can witness it, and but only really truly the divine judges knows at what level or they're at. I don't know if somebody's just in error or they're really purposely just cosmically insane and trying to do it. So if she understood just how far apart and away from God that iniquity was, she wouldn't be teaching people to embrace their inner evil, right? Because she would realize that's an anti-Christ, anti-God message, which we have been programmed from birth to be anti-Christ and anti-God because of various things like this. And even within this Christianity, if we're thinking of it as a fear of God, then we're also being programmed from birth to be anti-Christ and anti-God. If we're approaching this from the fear aspect, that's anti-God. That's anti the teachings of Christ, as we just learned, is about mastery and through reverence, not fear. Wait, what did he say again? Um, okay. Rather, oh, right. He's not teaching it from fear. He's calling it an exalted privilege to let your lower nature drop away as you pursue the higher things. Okay, so that's why these, if she crystallizes in this and she doesn't want to read the book or embrace whatever truth comes her way, then she's just going to be teaching people to embrace their evil. But now let's synthesize the new way. Okay, the new way that's beyond the teachings of Teal Swan, which is the teachings of Jesus from the Urantia book. He's saying not to battle. Don't battle those lower things, which Teal Swan was reacting to. Remember, he said that the path of John and things like that, or even your Hindus, by sitting on the bed of nails, that was killing and destroying the lower nature. What Jesus is saying, you're not to destroy the lower nature. You actually want to, don't battle, ascend. Bring your lower nature in line with your higher nature. But do it because of a privilege, an honor and a privilege, not because of a battle. Bring lower nature in line with higher because of a privilege of being a son and daughter of God. She and all the Buddhists and a lot of this non-duality type teaching just want to pretend that evil's not real. Evil's not real. It's relatively real. That's the nuance. Relative. In a time-space universe, it's relatively real. So that's how we're taking both of those things into consideration, right? I mean, try to tell those people that, had their kids die in a school shooting that evil isn't real, and that person was really they were actually doing great because they had embraced their inner evil. They took the teaching of Teal Swan to embrace that side of themselves. So there's just a nuance. They're all right. She's right. You don't want to battle it. You don't want to be beating yourself up. You want to embrace that. You don't want to destroy your lower nature. So she's right. But we need to add the nuance to it. And that's what the Urantia book, will help us do. So anyways, if anybody... Oh, wait. Did anybody have a question? I haven't been... Oh! Ladies and gentlemen, there's a very wise teacher in the chat. One Billy Posniakis. Let's see, such enlightenment. Wow. I would consider you to be my teacher. So that's an honor coming from you. We're trying to channel a little bit of, see what comes through in some art channeling. If anybody wants to follow along, or if you have any questions, let me know. If you have any book questions, let me know. But we're mixing it up a little bit today. We're doing an art channeling, kind of like, see what comes through. I'm only doing one mark. If you want to follow along, I really suggest this. Look, I did this and I wasn't even thinking about it. And we'll see at the end, though. Right now, it just looks like a scribble scrabble, right? But at the end, when we zoom out, I'm expecting us to be able to see some sort of form and picture or something. But I don't know. This is kind of like faith walk drawing. You just make one mark, so you're not doing any of your own decisions. The only decision that I decided was that I'm going from left to right, top to bottom, and I'm only doing vertical marks. The only thing that I'm kind of varying is just how I go over them, or different pressures that I put on it. But I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just, and then hopefully we're channeling a higher artisan, a celestial artisan, perhaps, and they're going to reveal something. We'll see. But if you have any questions, all right, that sheet of paper you just had that you were writing on should be framed. It is an important piece. Wow, that's an honor. Well, thank you very much for that. We were talking the other day. Billy said that there's another famous quote, which is, "What is nothing?" So people that like philosophy, if you have an answer for that, we'd like to hear it. I don't know if any human divine philosopher, I should say, can answer that as well as Billy. And I don't know if you read, I had a comment that he may be the only human philosopher on the planet that can understand the statement, "The answer is that there is no answer." I can't understand it. I even thought about what is nothing for a while. Now, another interesting concept. It's the human self that doesn't know the answers to these things. The divine self, and this is a blanket statement, the divine self knows, and it knows now. So your divine self has no problem with things like what is nothing. But it's our human self that's approaching that with logic and reason. That just really has a tough time, I guess. What is nothing? I mean, because as soon as you start to think about it, you're creating it. So you just have to know it and know it now. Oops. So yeah, those are some fun philosophy types of things. There's actually beings in the Urantia book that are called the master philosophers of the universe. And and I believe they say that they're not like just learning and studying philosophy, but they're literally the embodiment of philosophy. So maybe we'll take a gander at that. If anybody has any input or questions or anything like that, then feel free to drop them in. But yeah, let's see if we can find out what these master philosophers are all about. Speaking of philosophy, master philosophers, prepare to have your mind blown into about 800,000 pieces right here. Imagine the Urantia book telling you about what the master philosopher is in the universe. Where are these? It's going to be, if anybody knows that, where their personalities of, let's see, it's got to be in the central and super universe, because they're beyond the local universe. Or we can just ask Billy to explain himself, and then we'll know all about what a master philosopher is. Let's see. All right, so let's see. Central and super universes, folks. Central and super universes. Even just looking at these is such an uplifting thing. Okay, even at just this is what this book. Look at what this book has. These are just the topics: God's everywhereness, God's infinite power, God's universal knowledge, God's limitlessness is different than God's everywhereness. The Father's supreme rule, the inevitabilities, the Father's primacy, the benediction. I don't even know what that is. Maybe we'll look at that one after. The benediction. Actually, I'm intrigued. Let's look at that now. I've read this book, but there's so much in it that... What is a benediction? Ah, here we go. Actually, this is quite interesting. Here, we'll jump in here because I saw the word philosophy. All religious philosophy, sooner or later, arrives at the concept of unified universe rule of one God. Okay? Sooner or later. So they'll get there, folks. You know, that's why I'm not trying to put anybody down like Teal Swan, you know. She's on her path. You know, she's an entry-level guru. They're all entry-level gurus until they read this. And you could be way, way beyond where they're at. I mean, think about it. All right, let's just think about what we're about to put into our minds here. Universe causes cannot be lower than universe effects. The source of the stream of universe life and of the cosmic mind must be above the levels of their manifestations. Let's read that again. Okay. The source of the streams of universe life and of the cosmic mind must be above the levels, right, the creator then, you know. Okay, the human mind cannot be consistently explained in terms of the lower orders of existence, okay? Like it's beyond an animal mind. Man's mind can be truly comprehended only by recognizing the reality of the higher orders of thought and the purposive will. Right. I feel so much different than like an average dog or something like that, because there's all these things happening. Man as a moral being is inexplicable unless the reality of the universe Father is acknowledged. Yes. The mechanistic philosopher professes to reject the idea of a universal and sovereign will. The very sovereign will whose activity in the elaboration of universe laws he so deeply reverences. Yeah, that's paradoxical, because philosophers really are, they're trying to find truth, right? They really are seekers of truth, and they spend days and years and lifetimes trying to nail down and hammer down on truth. They're trying to take so many things into consideration, right? But if he's rejecting God, if he's rejecting a universal and sovereign will, which is God, the will of God, the very sovereign will whose activity in the elaboration of universe laws he so deeply reverences, right? He reveres the laws because he's so into them. He doesn't want to deny truth. We know that of our philosophers. But he's even rejecting the being who created those laws, because that's going to take a leap of faith. He's not going to be able to deduce that purely by philosophy alone. What unintentioned homage the mechanistic pays the law creator when he conceives such laws to be self-acting and self-explanatory. Whoa! He's actually paying homage to the creator when he's saying that. He's like, wow, your law, because they are. Imagine creating like physics, for instance, and then you can just create it and be like, there it is. It's going to do its thing. And they recognize it, that it just does its thing. But that's such an homage to say you can create something, a whole system that just is able to self-enact like that never needs any gas, it's just physics. It doesn't, all right. It is a great blunder to humanize God, except in the concept of the indwelling thought adjuster, our spirit that we have within us. But even that is not so stupid as completely to mechanize the idea of the first great source and center and saying physics is God. No, God is the creator of physics. Does the Paradise Father suffer? I do not know. Wow. Let's see who's admitting that they don't know. A divine counselor. Look at divine counselor is admitting that they don't know. I think we read about the divine counselors in one of our other, but just an extremely high order Trinity origin being, I believe. I mean, ancient being, and it's right here saying, I don't know. The Creator's sons most certainly can and sometimes do, even as do mortals. Okay, right. Like our Jesus of Nazareth had, his sufferings. The eternal Son and the infinite Spirit suffer in a modified sense. Interesting. I think the universal Father does, but I cannot understand how. Wow. Perhaps through the personality circuit or through the individuality of the thought adjusters and other bestowals of his eternal nature. Right. Yeah, because maybe if he's so intimately associated with us as we suffer, maybe even says that. Here it is. Yep. He has said of the mortal races, in all your afflictions, I am afflicted. Yeah. He unquestionably experiences a fatherly and sympathetic understanding. He may truly suffer, but I do not comprehend the nature thereof. The infinite and eternal ruler of universes is power, form, energy, process, pattern, principle, presence, and idealized reality. But he is more. He is personal. He exercises a sovereign will, experiences self-consciousness of divinity, executes the mandates of a creative mind, pursues the satisfaction of the realization of eternal purpose, and manifests a father's love and affection for his universe children. And all these more personal traits of the Father can be better understood by observing them as they were revealed in the bestowal life of Michael, your creator son, while he was incarnated on Urantia. God the Father loves men, God the Son serves men, and God the Spirit inspires the children of the universe to the ever-ascending adventure of finding God and the Father by the ways ordained by God the Son and through the ministry and the grace of God the Spirit. All right, we're going for Masters of Philosophy here. Yeah, in all your afflictions I am afflicted. Wow. It's all profound. Yet profound, yet it's just nothing to rack your brain over. As soon as you start to rack your brain and start to feel, bogged down, if it's something like that, It's best to just remember, access the divine self. The divine self knows, and it knows now. And so you just simply are. Okay. Let's see. Look at some of these things. Energy, mind and matter, space potency. If anybody sees anything that you're interested in, just let me know. Let's see. Universe power directors. Here, ministering spirits of the super universe. The soul of philosophy, perhaps? Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Wow. Okay, let's just look at this. Ministering spirits of the super universe. Tertiafim. These are all beings, right? That minister. So, omniafim, seconophim, primary seconophim, the voice of the conjoint actor, the voice of the seven master spirits, the voice of the creator sons, the voice of the angelic hosts, broadcast receivers, transport personalities, the reserve core, the secondary seconophim, the voice of wisdom. That's a being. The soul of philosophy. Yeah, we have to look this up. The union of souls, the heart of counsel, the joy of existence. Whoa. Is that a being? I wonder if that's a being. The satisfaction of service, the discerner of spirits, the significance of origins. Is that a being? The memory of mercy, the import of time, the solemnity of trust, the sanctity of service, the secret of greatness, and the soul of goodness. Okay. 310. The significance of origins. Imagine having counsel with the significance of origins. Let's see here. The secondary seconophim. So wait, seconophim, it's some sort of advanced angel. Let's make sure we know what seconophim is first. Sechorific hosts are produced by the seven reflective spirits. Okay, so they're beings, basically like super advanced angels that come directly from the seven reflective spirits, assigned to the headquarters of each super universe. So there's 7 super universes, and each one has a reflective spirit. Okay. And then they are creating these things called seconophim. They're creative. All right, these angels. So they're angels, and they're created in groups of 7. So they're very advanced. They're more advanced than the seraphim. The seraphim are more the angels that are administering to us directly and that sort of thing, I believe. Okay, so seconophim, just keep in mind, very advanced angels. Seconophim of the secondary order are no less reflective than their primary fellows. Okay, so reflectivity in the universe is just being able to receive messages. It's kind of like this, a reflectivity process is, the spiritual mode of communication, basically. Up downloading knowledge and sort of thing without having to read a book. In fact, the book teaches that in advanced planets, they get 10,000 years of our book learning in 1 hour of time, which makes complete sense. Okay, being classed as primary, secondary, and tertiary does not indicate a differential of status or function in the case of seconophim. It merely denotes orders of procedure. Identical qualities are exhibited by all 3 groups in their activities. Okay. The 7 reflective types of secondary seconophim are assigned to the services of the coordinate Trinity origin associates of the Ancients of Days as follows. To the perfecters of wisdom, the voices of wisdom, the souls of philosophy, and the union of souls. Okay. So that's their grouping. I see. Okay. All right. Let's continue on. So the ones that are assigned to service the perfecters of wisdom, who are beings, and if you haven't seen my short on the perfecters of wisdom, I made one. Check that out. And then to the divine counselors, the hearts of counsel, the joys of existence, and the satisfactions of service. Okay. To the universal censor, yeah, the discerner of spirits. Right. Okay. So that's not just one being then. There's not just one soul of philosophy. There's many of them. Let's see what they say. Like the primary order, this group is created serially, and that is the firstborn was a voice of wisdom, and the seventh thereafter was similar, I say. And so with the six other types of these reflective angels, okay, so they keep continuing on. Then the next one is the soul of philosophy. The voice of wisdom. Certain of these Sekanophim are in or perpetual liaison with the living libraries of paradise, the custodians of knowledge belonging to the primary supernaphim. In specialized reflective service, the voices of wisdom are living, current, replete, and thoroughly reliable concentrations and focalizations of the coordinated wisdom of the universe of universes. To the well nigh infinite volume of information circulating on the master circuits of the super universe, these superb beings are so reflective and selective, so sensitive as to be able to segregate and receive the essence of wisdom and unerringly transmit these jewels of mentation, I don't know what that word means, to their superiors. The perfecters of wisdom, I see. So they are basically combing the universe of universes for these gems, and they reflect them. Okay, living libraries. And they so function that the perfecters of wisdom not only hear the actual and original expressions of this wisdom, but also reflectively see the very beings of higher lowly origin who gave voice to it. Wow. So they hear the actual expressions. It's not like hearing a recording of it. It is written, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask. On Uversa, which is the capital of our super universe, when it becomes necessary to arrive at the decision of wisdom in the perplexing situations of the complex affairs of the super universe government, when both the wisdom of perfection and of practicability must be forthcoming, then do the perfecters of wisdom summon a battery of the voices of wisdom, and by the consummate skill of their order, so attune and directionalize these living receivers of the enminded and circulating wisdom of the universe of universes that presently form these sacorific voices. There ensues a stream of the wisdom of divinity from the universe above, and the flood of the wisdom of practically from the higher minds, practicality from the higher minds of the universes below. So it's just this process of utterly beyond our grasp, really. I mean, if confusion arises regarding the harmonization, yes, of these two versions of the wisdom, immediate appeal is made to the divine counselors, who forthwith rule as to the proper combination's procedure. If there is any doubt as to the authenticity of something coming in from realms where rebellion has been rife, like ours, appeal is made to the censors, who, with their discerners of spirits, are able to rule immediately as to what manner of spirit actuated the advisor. So are the wisdom of the ages and the intellect of the moment ever present with the ancients of days, like an open book before their beneficent gaze. You can just faintly comprehend what all this means, right, to those who are responsible for the conduct of the super universe governments. The immensity and the comprehensiveness of these transactions are quite beyond finite conception. Wow. When you stand, as I repeatedly have, in the special receiving chambers of the Temple of Wisdom on Uversa, and see all this in actual operation, you will be moved to adoration by the perfection of the complexity and by the surety of the working of the interplanetary communications of the universe. You'll pay homage to the divine wisdom and goodness of the gods who plan to execute with such superb technique. And these things actually happen just as I have portrayed them. Okay, here we go. Soul of philosophy. Oops, I was off there. Okay. All right. The soul of philosophy. These wonderful teachers are also attached to the perfecters of wisdom and, when not otherwise directionalized, remain in focal synchrony with the masters of philosophy on paradise. Okay, those are the masters of philosophy. So these souls of philosophy are probably going to do the same function as they did, but for philosophy, but for coordinating these. So we have to look at the masters of philosophy. Think of stepping up to a huge living mirror, as it were, but instead of beholding the likeness of your finite and material self, of perceiving a reflection of the wisdom of divinity in the philosophy of paradise. Imagine that, just going up to a mirror and just being... And it becomes desirable to incarnate this philosophy of perfection, so to dilute it as to make it practical of application to an assimilation by the lowly peoples of the lower worlds. These living mirrors have only to turn their faces downward to reflect the standards and needs of another world or universe. Okay, so we're looking for the masters of philosophy. That's the soul of philosophy. Let's see. Maybe in the Trinitized Sons of God. Seventh super universe. Infinite Spirit, Paradise Trinity, Eternal Isle of Paradise. Seven Master Spirits. Where are the masters of philosophy? Adjacent Mind Spirits. Maybe it's under here. Might have to wait for another day, folks. We'll have to comb through this another time. Unless anybody out there knows where the masters of philosophy are in the book. I'm not sure. Here it is. Here it is. The Masters of Philosophy, 302. Masters of Philosophy. You will know the Masters of Philosophy when you begin to know your own Billy Pozniakas. No. All right. Okay. Next to the supreme satisfaction of worship is the exhilaration of philosophy. Wow. Okay, so they're saying worship is the supreme satisfaction. Next is the exhilaration of philosophy. Amazing. Never do you climb so high or advance so far that there do not remain 1,000 mysteries which demand the employment of philosophy in an attempted solution. Wow. Never. There's that word. And you can hang your hat when if the Urantia book is saying never, the beings who write this book, then that you can write that on your heart and embed that in your mind. It's never ending, it's eternal, infinite. The master philosophers of paradise delight to lead the minds of its inhabitants, both native and ascendant, in the exhilarating pursuit of attempting to solve universe problems. Okay, so they're on paradise. These super aphic masters, so it's like beyond angel, master of philosophy, are the wisdom of heaven. Oh, wise men of heaven, sorry. Wise men of heaven. The beings of wisdom who make use of the truth of knowledge and the facts of experience in their efforts to master the unknown. With them, knowledge attains to truth and experience ascends to wisdom. Okay. So you're taking knowledge and you're putting together, and now you're coming up with the full picture, which is truth. And you're taking just these experiences and now you're putting them together and saying, I'm learning from them. On paradise, the ascendant personalities of time experience the heights of being. They have knowledge, they know the truth, they may philosophize, think the truth. Okay, so to understand philosophy, if you're philosophizing, you're thinking the truth. They may even seek to encompass the concepts of the ultimate and attempt to grasp the techniques of the absolutes. At the southern extremity of the vast paradise domain, the masters of philosophy conduct elaborate courses in the 70 functional divisions of wisdom. Wow. Here they discourse upon the plans and purpose of infinity and seek to coordinate the experience and to compose the knowledge of all who have access to their wisdom. They have developed a highly specialized attitude towards various universe problems, but their final conclusions are always in uniform agreement. Okay, so they're coming together as unity. Remember, we can do that here on this planet. It's about unity, not uniformity. They're not all uniform. These paradise philosophers teach by every possible. Or let me zoom out a little bit so you guys can see this better. These paradise philosophers teach by every possible method of instruction, including the higher graph technique of Havona and certain paradise methods of communicating information. All of these higher techniques of imparting knowledge and conveying ideas are utterly beyond the comprehension capacity of even the most highly developed human mind. Wow. Here it is. We talked about this earlier. 1 hour's instruction on paradise would be the equivalent of 10,000 years of word memory method on Urantia. 1 hour. So you sit here and you read a book for 10,000 years. What is that even? What is that? And then that's 1 hour. Okay. So you cannot grasp such communication techniques. And there is simply nothing in mortal experience with which they may be compared, nothing to which they can be likened. So it's just, we'll have to wait. We'll have to get there and we'll have to wait and see what that's like to get. They can't even compare it to anything. So they can't even say, like, it would be like, downloading something. That would be a comparison that they could make, but they can't make that. The masters of philosophy take supreme pleasure in imparting their interpretation of the universe of universes to those beings who have ascended from the worlds of space. And while philosophy can never be settled in its conclusions as the facts of knowledge and the truths of experience, yet when you have listened to these primary super Naphim discourse upon the unsolved problems of eternity and the performance of the absolutes, you will feel a certain and lasting satisfaction concerning these unmastered questions. So you can be satiated, but you still don't know the answer, apparently, because nobody knows. These intellectual, or maybe God, the Father, the intellectual pursuits of paradise are not broadcast. The philosophy of perfection is available only to those who are personally present. I see. You have to attain it. The encircling creations know of these teachings only from those who have passed through this experience, when have subsequently carried this wisdom out to the universes of space. Wow. So there's beings who can, the encircling creations know of these teachings. So we can know of them, but from other teachers who have learned them and now are passing them down. That is, folks, the masters of philosophy. Wow. Okay. That about does it for the Urantia live stream. Unless anybody has any questions that they want to type in. Appreciate everybody for checking it out and listening. And carry on and on and on and on, because as people who have awakened our inner divinity, that's all that there is for us is eternity. So take care. Good seeing everybody. And have a good night.